What is up, everybody? John Kettler here again today with another edition of Bad Deck Monday. Now, before we get into the meat of our video, I'd like to give ourselves a pat on the back because we did it, guys, and we did it together. We got a card banned and expanded, and that card is Forest of Giant Plants. A little while ago, a few days ago to be precise, this card, along with Archeops from Noble Victories, were announced to be the first bans and expanded in about 2 years. Now, one of the main reasons why Pokemon Organized Play decided to ban Forest of Giant Plants is because even though no one deck in particular was that broken in the format, they decided that the combined number of decks would be unhealthy for the format. So let's just go ahead and put this in perspective. There was Decidueye Vileplume, there was Lurantis GX Vileplume, there were donk decks like the Shiftry deck from Next Destinies, and then Forretress from Flashfire, which puts damage counters onto everything. So you had a whole lot of really unhealthy decks that may have not necessarily dominated by themselves, but taken together caused a lot of problems. So why are we throwing Decidueye Vileplume and Expanded into the bad deck column? Well, I'll tell you why. Because in theory, at least, it's a bad deck. And the reason why is because we can't get set up quickly anymore. And an expanded speed counts. When we have Darkrai's that are capable of dealing 160, 180 damage turn 1, when we have Archie's Blastoise that's able to deal just as much damage and get a stage 2 into play turn 1, we've got a lot of catching up to do. And so right now we've changed the focus of the deck a little bit, and we're going to see if a forestless version of the deck can actually compete in what we project to be a sort of kinda metagame for the 2017-18 format and expanded. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over the deck, and we are also going to be playing against matchups that we would expect to see once the ban kicks in. So if we see anything Forest, we'll scoop. If we see any Archeops, we'll scoop. We'll play against anything else. So, alright, let's take a look at the deck. I'm assuming that most of us know what Decidueye Vileplume is as a deck, but just for those who may not, the whole concept is to get Decidueyes into play, deal lots of free damage with Feather Arrow. The more you get into play, the better. And do that under Vileplume's Irritating Pollen, which shuts off all items, makes it a lot harder to play around. Now, I won't be going into depth as far as a lot of the normal choices we might see for consistency in setting up, but I will tell you about some of our special changes. So, first one is, we can't get a turn 1 Vileplume into play anymore, so the way we're going to try to get around that is we are going to play Seismitoad EX. Now, Seismitoad EX gives us the chance for a turn 1 item lock with its Quaking Punch attack. Meanwhile, let's also go ahead and take a look at the changes we made to our stadium line. You'll notice we actually have stadiums still, and those are 2 Tropical Beaches. Now, Tropical Beach ends your turn, but you get to draw a whole fresh new hand up to 7. That is really good in this deck when we're trying to set up so many different pieces all at once. Of course, you'll notice a lot of things look familiar. You'll see AZ to let us grab back Pokemon when we need them. You will see Lysanders, and you'll see Xerosic to help us compete with Garbodor decks or any other ability lock situations. Now, a couple interesting choices I have made are a Tech Bridgette, and the whole idea behind that is since we're not going to have that explosive turn 1 with the evolution Pokemon anymore, we might as well get lots of Pokemon into play. And what better way to do that than with a supporter, which is particularly strong against Trevenant. Now, with Yveltal getting a lot weaker as a deck, with Grass decks getting a lot weaker, I think Trevenant is going to go up in play in the expanded format. And so additional supporters are always good in that case. And you'll also see I have a Tech Skyla. So originally we were running Trainer's Mail to try to pick up things and bleed through our deck really fast, but I've replaced one of those with a Skyla, and the reason why is because we want to be able to grab any particular piece to our puzzle so that we get it into play at a decent pace. So we aren't aiming anymore for that super fast turn 1, and we aren't even aiming for a turn 2 exactly, but the way we have it set up, we can build up a very convincing turn 3, especially if we get that Seismitoad into play. Now, a couple ideas that did not make it into this list, but you might actually consider after testing a little bit, is either to run a Wally. So Wally, tech supporter, lets you search your deck for a Pokemon and evolve it straight away. Lets you do that in the first turn. Works almost kind of like a mediocre version of having Forest in play. And the second thing is Rare Candy, which item card lets you evolve straight away from a basic to a stage 2. I really like that. I think in a final version of this list I would consider it, but right now we're only thinking about showcasing what a more basic version of it can do. And plus, just to be perfectly honest, I think that not running Candy will probably be good for us against, say, Trevenant. So let's go ahead and get right to it. And here we are against a Grass deck. Now, we might actually be seeing an auto scoop here because Grass deck probably runs Forest. Forest, that's part of our rule. We don't want to play against a Forest deck. We want to play against what a real expanded metagame might look like. So even though we might actually have the advantage here because we can exploit their Forest Giant plants, so situationally this is pretty good for us. We have all these different tools we can work with. We'll probably win whatever Grass Mirror this might be. But that said, I don't really want to do that because these videos aren't about winning games. They're about showcasing what I want to show you. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like grinding the VS ladder, but today I'd rather actually show off what this deck can do. So unfortunately, in order to stay true to our word, but not to waste this opportunity, we're going to go ahead and play this first turn out. Yeah, I see a Fomantis, so that already tells me we're probably going to be playing against a Forest deck. I think this guy might be trying to go for his last hurrah with Forest Giant plants before he gets banned. So we're gonna Juniper this stuff away, see if we get something workable. We don't get a whole lot of great stuff here, but we are gonna set ourselves up really nicely, and I think they're gonna get really surprised when they see a beach coming up. I'm gonna pitch this Seismitoad. I think for the most part it's gonna be worthless in this matchup. Some really bizarre situational opportunities to use it, but I'm not going to see it. Now, I had a chance to go for the Shaman there, but actually I decided that it would be better to go for the safest, simplest pet play. I'm just going to go ahead and beach. So I'm already revving myself up to click that old concession button, but he's not going to make it easy for me. Unless he dumps like a Forest Giant plants or something, then I'll know. This should be my like 100%. Yep, there we go. And sorry, bud. Looks like we were gonna have a pretty good game, but we've got a job to do. Now, what I edited out of the video a while ago was a long wait period for that first game, so something's telling me that at the time of recording, we're not really going to get a chance to play against too many people, so it might take a while. But let's see. It looks like we got another person trying to grind a little bit more before the end of the format. It is a expanded Night March, I think. We got the Fighting for Archeops, Psychic for Pumpkaboo, Lightning for Joltik. And for what it's worth, if you're trying to pick up games on PTCGO of the expanded format, it'll actually be really difficult. If you're trying to do what I'm trying to do right now, it's just not that practical. I think you guys would be a lot better off in having 1v1 friend battles or something like that. I'm going to bend my rule a little bit here, where my current decision is that if it takes him a really long time, or if he doesn't ever get out the Archeops, yeah, I think I'll stick with that. If he never gets out the Archeops, then this game will count. The moment he gets out an Archeops, it'll scoop. But I think for the purposes of recording, we're going to go ahead and play it out, see how it goes, and if it's a sizably long game, then we'll count it. Although I really want to show off what this thing can do against a non-Archeops, non-forest deck. Unfortunately, I think that there's a reason why these cards are going to get banned. And that reason is that they are just too dang good. So we got a Mew from Fate's Collide. That's a pretty normal choice. Hopefully Cross Frisco, Cross C Frisco, XC Frisco is going to miss his maxis so that we can make this into a recordable, decent game as opposed to a second concession. Pretty interesting play. It looks like he's got double puzzle here. And for the record, I hate how Puzzle of Time is displayed on PTCGO. I mean, I just hate the way that it's done, because you're always guessing until you actually make the decision whether it's a 1-card puzzle or a 2. I'm eyeing that concession button. Tapu Lele, a nice choice for Expanded Night March. Very nice. But that is not nice. So we are going to concede. Come on, I want to play against a fellow scrub. I want to play against somebody who actually doesn't want to use these cards. Okay, and we are up against a grass and colorless deck. I'm hoping that for demonstrations purposes, this is not running a Forest to Giant plants, but we will actually see whether or not it is. And I think, you know, worst case scenario, if it is, then we'll just go ahead and wing it. Like, ideally, I like to show you guys what this deck can do against a non-forest deck, but let's just go ahead and scoop. I bet I'm probably going to flag some sort of internal system for PTCGO because I've scooped so many times. And the obnoxious thing is you have to wait through all these mulligans. Yeah, the more and more that I go through these different matchups, the more I realize how good of a decision it was to ban those 2 cards, because Expanded's been getting to the point where it's been becoming more and more like Unlimited, and Unlimited is all about this sort of stuff. So it looks like we finally got a Trevenant deck to play against after several different attempts to log a game against something other than Archeops or Forest. Unfortunately, that's literally all that everybody's playing on PTCGO Expanded, because most of the serious players are not spending time on that. They're either focusing on the new standard, or in the alternative, they are preparing for Worlds. So, we got to start here with a Seismitoad, our 1 Seismitoad, and a Rowlet. I'm going to bench both, even if there's a little bit of a risk of me getting Lysandered or some weird thing. I don't think it's going to happen, especially against Trevenant. But I am starting the Seismitoad because even though I'm up against a fellow item lock deck, I want to be able to lock them for a little while I set up. And in addition to that, I don't want my energy to be completely annihilated. So I will definitely take my mulligan. And it looks like I'm horribly wrong. I am not playing against a I'm not playing against a Trevenant deck. I'm playing against a Garb. So this will get really interesting. And we've got Great Ball. Great Ball is a Trashalanche. Huh. So far, everything other than the Great Ball looks pretty normal and standard, so I get the impression that this is just a creative choice, maybe a new engine to see if it works better. So, a couple surprises there. Number one surprise being that he successfully Great Balled into a really good card and got a really good card, but he chose not to play his supporter. So what does that tell me? That tells me that he probably has a very busted good hand. So we're going to want to tread lightly here. We're going to want to be careful with the way we approach this. Although that said, even though he has multiple attacks, both on Garbodor and on Trubbish, that can make us pretty vulnerable to losing this double, we're going to go ahead and play it anyways. And we're going to Lysander up that Oricorio. Now, I don't like giving items so early in the game, and I especially don't like this energy discard right now, but I'm going to do it anyways so that I can start setting myself up. Now, we aren't going to get some really sweet opportunity to use that beach because we were going second instead of first, but opting for the slower start is probably going to pay off in the long run because now we've got outs to our turn 3 Decidueye and our turn 3 Vileplume. Wow, so he had lots of different supporter options he was sitting on, and the only reason he didn't play it was because he didn't want to discard his Garbodor. That's actually pretty interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it probably would have been worth it, especially if he runs multiple Garb. So I will go ahead and evolve to my Dartrix, and since we've already got our item lock in play, we don't need to push really hard to set it up. So we're just going to go ahead. Quaking Punch, we're not going to feed him a whole bunch of extra damage. We are going to force him to use Acid Spray on Garbodor. And meanwhile, we're just going to go ahead and take our sweet time. So he beaches for one, and it looks like it's working out really well. Our strategy of only keeping these two items, not feeding him anymore. I'm not going to play any items until it's absolutely necessary. And this is a good turn to Bridget. Definitely getting to Rowlet. I have a choice either to get this third Rowlet or leave a bench space open. For now, I am actually going to leave the space open. And we are going to continue our onslaught here, and it looks like the floodgates are about to open. So now might be the perfect time to start feeding him a couple more items. Right, we aren't going to feed him any more than necessary. We're just going to play this one level ball, but I think that might help us out. So I didn't get a good chance to check earlier, but it looks like we've got a single copy of N prized. That means that we actually have about a 1 in 6 chance of drawing into it on this Quaking Punch knockout. Now it's getting dicey. Now it's getting really dicey, and the reason why I say that is because we may be setting ourselves up for a spot. Ooh, that double discard really hurts. Like, there is no getting around that. That just hurts. But at the very least, we get to avoid the double really killing us here. So we've got, because we top deck the Tapu Lele, we can Wonder Tag and search out a supporter. I can either go for an N here, give him a new hand. Unfortunately, he probably has lots of items. I can just leave it benched. That's probably not a good idea. I can get Zero Sick, but or I can get Skyla, but I think the better option here is to go for the N. Even if we do give him a slightly better hand, we avoid feeding him all these items. We refresh. We have a good chance of hitting an energy. Yep. Very good chance, as a matter of fact. We just got it. And we can continue our very deliberate, careful playing this game. And Quaking Punch the crap out of that Garb. So, always good to check over and over again against this matchup. We've only fed him 3 items. Ideally, we won't feed him anything else. He's playing really well with this Acid Spray strategy. I think it's good that he's staying so dedicated to it. But I think it might finally be time to close this. Start doing something else. Or what I can do is I can Hollow Hunt the next turn for some of these doubles. I hate dedicating so many double right now, but this can actually work out that he runs Rainbow, because I can discard this, force him to attach again, and continue advancing the board state a little bit. And now all I have to do, just as far as risky situations go, is to put myself in a situation where I'm drawing into my grass energy. And I have 3 left, so I should have checked my prizes to check if any were in there, but I feel okay about it. I feel like we have really good chances of drawing into him. So, that said, he's promoting the Garbodor, so that already clued me into whether or not he'd have a way around that. He did. And we've still only played 3 items total, but that'll probably change. Go ahead and drop this trainer's mail, see what we grab. Don't get anything particularly useful. The Floatstone is not bad, but definitely not what I wanted to see. So what we're going to do is, our supporter's already used for the turn. You'd probably argue it's a wasted supporter. We've got all 3 of our grass in the deck. So we are going to Ultra Ball. We're going to thin our hand down, not discard that Revitalizer. We don't want to waste it, but more importantly, we don't want to feed him a tool we don't have to, because now we're only up to 4 because that Floatstone went directly into play. And we're Shamaning, setting up for 5, excuse me. And unfortunately, we missed that. We missed that really hard. But this is a good chance to see the application of Tropical Beach come into play, because Tropical Beach is going to account for this really bad turn here. We didn't hit any of our energy. We didn't hit anything. This is, most situations, just really awful. But we can get around that a little bit, because now we get to draw a couple cards. And if we somehow are able to hit a double instead of a grass, we can even maybe knock that Garbodor out. And it could make how many items we have in the discard irrelevant. Now, I want to bring this thing back into the bench, because I don't want to give him free damage. So early right now on a Decidueye, but I've got 4 in there. I don't want to give him a whole bunch of extra prizes, and I really want to force him to use that second Lysander on something. So we're just going to go ahead and beach for 2. We didn't really hit anything that great, but the AZ certainly doesn't hurt. We'll go ahead and drop that double on the Tapu Lele, and if we were really running this in 17-18 expanded, we'd probably run a couple Burning Shadows cards like Acerola. But we will drop that on the Lele. And by my count, he would have 2 Trubbish left, but he's not in the board position to be going nuts with it. So we're just going to go ahead and try to wipe this thing off right away. We're actually in a cool spot where we can AZ right now, and we'll get 2 benefits out of that. The first is we'll get all that damage off Decidueye right away. The second is we'll get another Feather Arrow this turn. And I'm going to go ahead and do it because even though there are advantages to holding it, I kind of want a Juniper for the next turn. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Evolve this Rowlet to Dartrix. Roll that Dartrix to Decidueye. Thanks to Bridget for setting us up. And Feather Arrow to the Tapu Lele, which is probably going to be what he brings out to attack. And Energy Drive to put us even further ahead in this game. That's a really good prize to hit. I mean, that's another card that would probably switch out Guzma for Lysander, but right now this is a really good spot to be in because he is down a double. He's played 2 doubles on this Lele. So we're just going full steam ahead, and he knows that if I hit the second Decidueye, he's probably done for, but we whiff it. So we're going to settle for the next best thing. We will Feather Arrow. Hopefully he does not run any really strong way around it, like a Pokemon Center Lady or something really disruptive, and we're just going to go ahead for 120. So assuming he doesn't run some really hot tech, then we are going to knock that thing out next turn. So let's check out our item situation again. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Still not enough for a Garbodor to knock out a Decidueye, which is really important right now. Cannot stress how important that is. Now, I'm really shocked he didn't try to just go ahead and use his Tapu Q that turn in a more conservative approach. He probably should have done that because 160 off a Lele is a big deal, especially when he's not out of this game one bit. So we're going to bring up Dartrix. I want to, worst case scenario, set me up for a non-GX prize exchange. It looks like we might be able to close this game out if we are able to set up reasonably well. We're having a horrible time actually digging into any of those grass energy. There's still 3 in a 7 card deck. That's kind of a joke. But on the plus side, we've got an N in that prize pool. So maybe we can do something with this. I don't know. What do you think about my approach to the game so far? Do you have anything to suggest that might have made it better? Do you think that everything I've done is optimal? Leave a comment below. Now right now I'm ending down to 1. I want to give myself a really good chance of hitting that grass and then transitioning into another grass. I think it probably would have been the better plan to evolve this active 1. Maybe my odds of hitting the grass weren't that good, but I think at the very least I am in a better spot if I do that. And I think the reason why I would be in a better spot is simply because I could have Hollow Hunted, or I could have even... Well, actually, you know what? I didn't want to risk being able to set up something for such an easy knockout, so we used both of our Feather Arrows, and we will exploit that tropical beach. And set ourselves up really nicely. We might force him to even use Tapu Cure, not this turn, but the next one. Good play by our opponent here to take advantage of our tropical beach. If your opponent plays a card that you can exploit, you always want to take advantage of it. Now we are primed to possibly close this game out if we do it right. This is why Hollow Hunt is always really, really hard to do right. Oh, okay, never mind. It looks like we didn't even get a chance to think about it. He just scooped. I think he probably hit garbage off of that beach hand. Garbage. Garbage while playing garbage. That's fun. And let's get another real game in against something other than Forest Giant Plants, other than Archeops. That was a cool game. Other than the Great Ball, that seemed like a pretty solid, normal list. I think maybe the Great Ball even had some good justifications behind it. And we've got a water and a colorless deck. Water and a colorless deck. I wonder what we will see. I think it could be a Lapras, maybe? Probably is, and it's probably something, maybe Seismitoad. I think Seismitoad makes the most sense. You know, even though Seismitoad is probably not a good starter against whatever this is, I'm tempted to start it anyways, because I don't want to play any of those, but I think I'll go with the Lele, because we've got 2 in deck, and we've got 1 in hand already. Just because, oh, and we've got, yeah, we got Greninja, so that was probably a good choice. Alright, so don't have to worry about playing items or being conservative with them now, so let's just go ahead and take advantage of it. This, with a forest version, would probably be a really favorable matchup, but it's a bit more in question because we don't have that, so let's go ahead and grab 2 Rowlet and an Oddish. I think we're going to need all of these in this matchup. You got to be careful with how you evolve your Vileplume when you're playing against Greninja, but we've got an AZ and we've got 2 Float Stones, so I'm not too worried. We aren't going to get too insane with this opening hand here, but I want to maybe set up this Tapu Lele for a knockout on a bubbled Froakie. Although, I think I'd rather just keep my resources. I think that if I need that, I can dig it in the next turn. So let's just go ahead and be conservative. Let's not waste anything we might need. And pass. And the Froakie Gambit doesn't work out. And so it's really interesting. There's some high risk, high reward here, because if he hits the heads, then he basically shuts off any aggression that I might have. But if he whiffs the heads, then he actually makes it easier for me to knock him out. And that's probably what's going to happen in a little bit. So we've grabbed our Dartrix. We've got equal odds of getting a Dartrix or a Gloom off of the Shaman for 4. But we are going to go ahead and go for the Gloom because we've already got access to a Dartrix. We even got access to Decidueye soon. And set up for 4. And hopefully we dig our way into a double out, although I should have checked my prizes again, been a little bit more sure about it. I'm not interested in boring you guys with that really long, arduous process. And to be perfectly honest, I don't like doing that in stream matches either. It's a necessity at that point. I think that I can afford misplays when I'm on stream. I'm not really that worried about making them. I'm pretty comfortable in my own skin, but in actual tournament games, you have to be really careful about with basically every choice you make. And I don't mean to stress yourself out or freak yourself out about something, but you just got to be you gotta be careful about it. So I've got access to my computer search. I got access to my Skyla. So actually, I could go ahead and maybe set that up. I think maybe this whole Ultra Ball choice might have been a little bit of a misplay, perhaps, but I'll go ahead and set myself up as much as I can anyways, because I could have not discarded that. I could have gone for the Lele, searched out Skyla, grabbed the computer search, and then just got the sure thing. So I'm going to stick Juniper, and I'm going to discard the sure thing for the riskier, greedier play, and it seems like it paid off. And I will Energy Drive and score the first blood in the game. Alright, so the read I get off this Escaper right now is that he probably doesn't have a whole lot, and this is just a desperation move to maybe try to survive for a while. The attachment here, probably not a good call, but not a big deal anyways, because I've already got Knockout. Show him it in case he got self-conscious or something. And we got the win on Greninja. Huh, I sound surprised about that. I guess it's just because of no Force Giant plants. Let's go ahead and go for one more. I think that last game wasn't that good, so let's at least try to get us one more decent one. We're up against a pure Psychic deck. I wonder what this could be. Could this actually be the Trevenant I've been looking to play against all night? Or could this be another Garbodor? And we lose the flip. Lose the flip. We get no basics. No basics again. I think this is a big problem if we're playing against Trevenant, because we really, really don't want to feed them a bunch of mulligans. Because a single mulligan can turn a Trevenant hand from just kind of lousy to amazing. But seeing a Mew, and I don't know what this is. I have no way to predict what this is at all, so I could play the double on the active Rowlet, or hope I hit something else and maybe float the Rowlet out. So I'm just going to go ahead and Juniper. Maybe I'll hit a float and a Seismitoad. We do hit an Ultra Ball, so and it looks like we do have Seismitoad. That's pretty cool. So, unfortunately, we don't have the Float Stone out yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a little aggressive with this hand. It's not getting greedy, but we're going to go ahead and try to build our board. We're going to not try to expose ourselves to any risks with whatever that Mew might have in store. We're just going to set up and attach to the bench. Okay, not too bad. We run the risk of maybe discarding a really valuable resource later on in the game, but on the plus side, we are also well on our way to get exactly what we need by turn 3. So we're going to Ultra Ball. I feel a little worried about discarding that Decidueye, but I'll do it anyways. And double check to see. Yeah, we've got both Decidueye, which is good. And we've got the other Revitalizer, so that balances out discarding the 2 Decidueye and the 2 Revitalizer earlier. So, just get an Oddish and pass. Now, in case we're playing against a wacky Garbodor list, I don't feel good here because we've already played 3 items. And I would ideally not want to... Huh. Look at that. Look at that. I think he just wanted to scoop to us. Well, I tell you what. One really good game and a couple bad games, but that shows you what the deck can do. It shows that maybe Decidueye Vileplume with no force isn't actually that bad at all, and it actually looks like it might have a chance with some work, so who knows? Do you guys think that actually playing Decidueye Vileplume in 17-18 makes sense? If you are thinking about it, let me know. If not, also let me know. And that's all I got for today. Thanks for viewing.